Subscribe to our channel by clicking the subscribe button. Click the bell button and enjoy the latest uploads.
The style attribute. Up until now, we've talked a little bit about the style attribute, but we haven't really explained it. The greatest part about this attribute is that it can be applied to almost every single HTML element, and this is what it looks like. We open our element, close our element. Inside the open tag, we have our style attribute, and in here is where the value will go. Now this is a little bit different than other HTML values. With this value, we use CSS. Now we won't get too much into CSS at this time, as this is an HTML course. In the future, we will touch into CSS and go a lot more in-depth about how to use it and how to make the most out of it. But for now, I'll give you some basics to play with and make your elements a bit more attractive. As a quick note, I'd like to show you how CSS looks like. So we have our first attribute, first value, second attribute, second value. After the first attribute, we use a colon, and after every value, we use a semicolon. This will make a lot more sense in just a little bit. So first, the color attribute. The color will change the color of our text. It accepts two different answers. You can use a color, such as red, blue, white, black, yellow, or other basic colors. Or you can use hex. If you want a very specific shade of red, you can use, for example, A50000. So let's look at an example. We have our span tag, our style, and we set our color to red, with red font in the middle. We have another span, set that style to A50000, and that should be a dark red. And this is what it shows up as. We have a red font, and we have a dark red. And this is just an example to show you that it does accept basic colors and hex. Next, we have our font size. With a font size, you are able to fully control the font size of your element. From 0 pixels, which is so tiny it doesn't even display, to 200 pixels, which is so huge that the page would take hundreds of more pages to display. So let's go over another example. We have two span elements here. The first one has font size 8 pixels. The content says 8 pixel font size. The second one has a font size of 24 pixels. And px is what we use for pixel measurement. And inside we have 24 pixel font size. Now this will show up as a really small one, which is your 8 pixel, and your fair size one, which is your 24 pixel. Typically, websites will be by default be between 11 pixels and 13 pixel font size. For example, I believe Facebook uses 11 pixel font size. And now let's move on to background color. So not only can we change the color of our text, we can change the size of it, and we can change the background color. Now with background color, we can change the background color of almost every element. It will only change a background color where the tag spans. Here's a different background color. First, we have a div element, and then a font element. So with our first element, our div, we have background color 000, which is black, and we use the color of white. If you want the hex color of white is FFF. And then for our second element, we have font, and it has a background color of red, which is F00. Font weight of bold. Now font weight is one we're not going to cover too much right now. A font weight can be normal, bold, bolder, or you can give it a number. Typically you just want to stick with font weight is normal or font weight is bold. And this just says red background, bold text, not block. And here's what it looks like. Because our div element here is a block element, it's going to take up all the room that it's allowed to, this entire black area. And that's what I mean by where the tag spans. Now a font element, for example, will only span where you tell it to, around the font that you want it to, which will only change the background of where it can go. Now did you notice how we added multiple styles to our style attribute? In our top example, with a black background, we have background color, and then we use a semicolon, and we have our color, and we ended with another semicolon. It's always good practice to end with a semicolon, and that allows us to apply more than just one style. And again, I'm just going to stress that it is very important to use that semicolon after each value. Otherwise, the browser doesn't know exactly what it's looking for, and your page will not be displayed correctly. Next, we have padding. Padding and margin are very similar, but we'll cover padding first. For example, you see the display box from the background color example? This is what I mean by the display box. The div and font elements do not touch the sides, top, or bottom. In theory they should, and that's because the display box has a padding in it. The padding is the area between the border and the inside area. So you can get a physical idea of exactly what padding is. The red border is the total area. So this red border that goes all the way around. It has a padding of 10 pixels. So we have 10 pixels from the left side to the middle, top to the middle, right to the middle, and bottom to the middle. And that looks like we created a white border inside the red one. Now that's not exactly what we did. What we really did was take away the area that the light blue section is allowed to take up. Now for styling, you can use padding left, padding right, padding top, padding bottom, or just a general padding. If you apply just a general padding, it will apply the pixel all the way around. Like what we did here, we have 10 pixel padding all the way around, and it's equal. Margin. Like I said earlier, margin is very similar to padding, but it's on the outside. So instead of creating a gap on the inside of the border, we'll create a gap on the outside of the border. This is the exact same padding example from above. However, we added a margin of 10 pixels. Our red border now takes up 10 pixels outside of the border. So we have a red border that goes all the way around just like before, but we added 10 pixel margin, which is this area between the black border and the red border. So padding is on the inside, like pads, and margin is on the outside, like your own personal bubble. And the same thing applies from padding. We have margin left, margin right, margin top, margin bottom, or just a general margin. This will put an equal margin around all four sides of your element. And here's the code from above, just to kind of show you what I mean. We have 10 pixel padding, 1 pixel border, and a 10 pixel margin. That's for our red one here. We have a background color of 09F. That's our light blue color that we're using. And it has no margin, no padding. For now, this is all we're going to go over. Play around with some of the styling, have fun with it. Make things ugly or pretty. I just wanted to stress the point that you can directly inject CSS into almost any HTML element, and knowing some of these will come in handy. In the future, we will be tackling CSS completely, and you will be able to apply everything you learned from CSS into the style attribute.